Hola singers, happy Thursday morning here in Newport News. It's rainy, the temperatures are cooling off. It is starting to feel like fall. So I'm gonna give us a minute to get some friends in here. Oh, and our guest is already here. Before I let him in, if you're a voice teacher who works with adolescents, especially people who are graduating seniors and pursuing a performing arts degree, then you are probably in the thick right now of preparing repertoire with them, audition books, writing letters of recommendation. So my guest today, Kikau Alvaro, is going to drop his college audition knowledge on us. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him in. Hi, everyone joining us. Let's give it a second. Hola!
Hello, hello.
Hi, how are you, sir?
I am so good. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, I had the privilege of meeting Kikau and working with Kikau in the Heights at Virginia Repertory Theater. It's like forever ago, but it still feels like it was just yesterday. He was our lovely assistant director, and I knew right away, just with his extensive background, how many people he's impacted, especially young aspiring performers. So Kikau, I'm gonna let you basically brag on yourself and tell us all of the wonderful things that you've done, what you're currently doing, and even what's on the horizon as well.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, oh my gosh, in the Heights, that was so much fun. So currently, in a little bit of a transition right now, but currently, I am and remain the associate artistic director at Virginia Repertory Theater, where we work together. And I used to run the musical theater program at Virginia Commonwealth University here in Richmond, Virginia, but am making the move to Philadelphia to take over as the program director of the musical theater program at University of the Arts, which is a beautiful little university in the middle of Philadelphia. And yes, I think that's it. I am making this transition. I love personally having my feet in both areas of academia, to be able to educate as well as in the professional theater space. This last year was weird and hard, but I just found myself being thankful every single day for the opportunities that I'm able to give my students in the form of guest artists, or to be able to hire my students in shows. And also, it just sort of feels like such a blissful life that I have in between these spaces, because it's everything that I love to do all in one thing.
Right. And I've been watching what you've done over the course of the year and a half with how creative we've all have been forced to be in order to still provide art, a somewhat interactive live experience with our audiences in this digital connection world where it seems like our primary connection is artists right now. We know that Broadway just opened back up, certain, at least COVID regulations and protocol here in the United States allow for live performances, with the necessary precautions from the CDC. And I believe, didn't you guys do a video performance of Spring Awakening
We
last spring?
did. We did.
Yeah,
This was a canceled production, of course, from the previous year, and we
right.
just adapted it for social distancing. I changed the concept to include masks, and we turned it basically into a full-length film. So rather than filming things exactly in order, I mean, we had full shoot days that would just be like, great, we're gonna film this thing that had the full cast and full company, and then we're going to pare that down so that we end the day with two people or whatever. I learned a lot. I am not. I don't want to say never again will I work on a film, but it's just not my space. I love live theater. I love like being able to anticipate how an audience thinks and responds. And really what happens in a filming experience is that stuff that I just talked about happens in the editing. It happens a little bit later on, and it's So yeah, it was so fun, so interesting, not my thing.
Right. And I find it maybe a little comforting to know that, because right now, in a world where most performers were forced to use video as their main vehicle to produce art, and still are, I
Mhm.
mean, my high school seniors and even my college students don't have money to travel to LA and New York for every single audition that they see on Backstage. They are submitting videos. So how do you balance the of being forced to do it for the last year as the only medium,
Mhm.
and the encouragement of, wait a second, this is still a very valid, like, you are still going to be submitting tape auditions in order to be hired. What kind of encouragement do you give your students
Yeah.
when they're still in that another video?
I know. My main thing is to think that not just your world has shifted, the entire world has shifted. So
Mm.
it from the top Broadway stars to people that are just getting started at this point, based on CDC guidelines and protocols, most places are not having in-person auditions. So the fact that you can put something on tape and send it in to a Broadway show, it sort of just democratizes the process. Everyone is being seen, everyone has the opportunity to be seen, and no longer is that gatekeeping physical location, or waiting in lines outside of the casting director's office. It's like, no, you're going right to the source and you're being seen. You're also not wasting other finances on exactly paying for trips. Um,
Hmm.
I will say that process, the filming process, has like stepped up. People are getting the ring lights. People have improved sound. I mean, even I have, brand new microphone situation,
Yeah.
and that has all been a part of the improved process. I just would say don't be afraid of it. I also would say I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I think recording your auditions and your callbacks is going to be a big part of what the next iteration of this industry looks like. We just at Virginia Rep went through two audition and callback processes that all began with video submissions. So, and we got submissions from all over the country, and then have been able to continue that process by asking for callback, sending them digital callback material that they're able to send just like that. And at Virginia Rep, we're able to hire these people, bring them in from out of town, and house them. So it all really is for something. It doesn't just go out into the ether. They are being seen, and people have to, as we're talking about technique, people have to keep practicing, keep putting themselves in front of cameras, and getting better at bringing forward that authenticity in a performance.
I think that is gold right there. I think there's still a little bit now, just so that I make sure I'm speaking to this as intelligently as possible. Virginia Rep's audition requirements for this season were all digital, or did you didn't have any in-person
Yes,
auditions, correct?
because that's right.
Okay,
Because we're
okay.
currently following AEA, or Actors
Hmm.
Equity advice, we cannot have any in-person auditions. We can, however,
Okay.
have in-person callbacks. So people, when they do come to the callback, actually have to prove that they've either been vaccinated or that they've had a recent um, COVID-19 test, which then we're able to invite them in person. Those callbacks do maintain distance, and all procedures are taking place for safety. But yeah, the initial callback, at least until we hear otherwise, have all been digital submissions. So when people are thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to digitally apply to these colleges, it's like, no, but it's happening. It's happening everywhere, and it has not shifted. That has not changed.
Right. And I like Kat you is even saying it must be so tedious to look through all those submissions. Excuse me, of course. I mean, you can speak to that. Like, because I actually have a question here in a minute, but I am curious as a casting director, both in an equity theater and as well for a performing arts university. Like personally, how do you structure your time and how do you try to keep fresh eyes every time you see a new tape?
Yeah, once again, we started this conversation with the level of bliss that I feel that I am so lucky. I walk through each day with so much gratitude because I'm just like I'm thankful to just be invited into this room. So I feel that same energy when I'm thinking about what it took for the auditionee or the applicant to put these videos together. I watch them with that fresh mind, like, okay, like I really want this person to be successful. Let's see what we can see. With both, I think it's important to dedicate specific time to viewing the tapes. For me, when people ask, well, how do you do so many things? I actually don't think of them as separate jobs. I think of it really as one job, and I'm dedicating the time during this hour to write this grant or to watch these videos or to begin this rehearsal process. One of my favorite things about musical theater in general is the opportunity to be able to collaborate with people and also to how quickly we go from one world to the next, right? When we worked on In the Heights together, that was this really special, sweet moment. And then at one point, that moment ends, whether that's, for me, really end of the rehearsal process, for you all, end of the performance process. It's like, okay, now we can pack up that world and we move on to the next thing. So there's that element of like compartmentalizing what worlds we're trying to build and what spaces we're trying to make. So I'm going in this roundabout way because there's just so many elements to it. But right now we're casting a Christmas show or holiday show at Virginia Rep, and it's been so fun for it to be September and for me to just feel it's like in my mind I have to put myself in that world. What is Christmas gonna feel like? What energies do we need in this space, and how can I best support that by finding the right people to be in those spots.
I love that. It parallels the performer's work of putting themselves in whatever piece that they're auditioning with, right?
That's right.
So that's really, if anything, I feel like I could be nodding my head so hard at every point that you're making, because I think what I was going to go back and allude to is it comes back to the fear of feeling as though the person who made the effort to be seen in person gets an advantage. And I hear that you're debunking that myth, that fear that, if you have put the work in, you basically, that fear should be eradicated. Would you confirm that?
I will confirm that. I think a good example, this little last round of submissions that we had, we invited people to the callbacks, and then people that could not physically attend because they live in New York or live just outside of where we are in Richmond, were able to send in callback material that then the director and myself reviewed, and then they received notes, and then were able to send more material back. So there's this process that is very alive still. Another technique that we might use is setting up a Zoom situation so that we're really able to be with each other and respond or ask the questions that we need to ask. So I would say that, I mean, there are pros and cons to both, but at this point they're pretty equal to each other. In this particular situation, we are, I'm not posting a cast list here on this live, but there are some people that will be hired from out of town. So that is just goes right to the point of it is possible to get a job. It is possible to be invited to a school and not physically be there.
Yay! Right? Hallelujah. Really, no, they really do mean what they say, you know? So that is fantastic, and that is worthy of celebrating. So Kikau, you and I, when we chatted last week in preparation for this, and you know, both you and I are very well aware of this controversial issue of the do not sing list. And um, you know, for those of you who are joining or listening to this later and you're not aware of what this is, it's basically an encouragement or a steering of songs that may be overdone in for some professors or in some audition realms. And most singers that are getting ready for auditions are usually discouraged from singing those. Now, I've had conversations too with a mutual colleague, with Tori Yamaoka, studying the song, who, yay, we love her so much, super fans here. Also too, of kind of like, again, removing some of the power of that list, especially in the world that we live in now, in this pandemic performance world. And I really appreciate your encouragement when we chatted, because you were like, have you actually seen one on a university website? So I did my research. And so I did, the closest thing that I found was one backstage.com article from January of this year, where the writer said she met with different professors and came up with a list. And then AMDA, the American Musical Dramatic Academy, they don't have a do not sing list. What they do is they have a few bullet points of what to avoid and maybe what to select, which I really appreciate, because now it's not, don't sing this, don't sing that. It's, hey, it's putting the ball back in the performer's court, right? So things like avoiding long narrative songs, signature star songs, difficult piano arrangements, kind of like your Audition 101 stuff. And then, you know, trying to do something that showcases vocal range, acting ability, and a song that you have a connection to. And then thankfully, they actually go ahead and are like, if that's not enough, here's some suggestions of things to look into. And they have a list of about 25 shows, and it's a good mixture of classic theater as well as contemporary shows. And I was like, oh, whoa, I think people are finally starting to pay attention that coaches, you know, personal voice coaches and theater teachers who are getting their students ready, we end up spending so much of our time working on coming up with the right song choice because we're reading through that do not sing list rather than investing the time in the actual performance. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Now that you are in it, you are getting ready to receive school submissions. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is such an interesting conversation. I actually want to start by saying that my opinion has actually shifted. I used to sort of subscribe to the like, don't sing songs that are on the overdone list, and that has just shifted. It's like, to me, it's so much more important for you to be able to share your authentic self. And for you to be comfortable with the music and the pieces that you're working on, that I don't think we need to put so much weight in what not to sing. It's like, I want to make a list of like, here are the things that, you know, I want you to be comfortable. I want you to sing in your comfortable range. I want you to find some opportunity in there to show a transition, to show that you can handle a shift in a song. And so like, these are just sort of, you know, even more internal things. I actually would also say that I think it's important for auditionees to look at these websites and not just think, I'm going to sing and do the same thing for every place. Like, there is a world where for that AMDA thing, they're being pretty specific. They're saying, here's what we want you to look at, and encouraging being specific about your song choice. So yeah, I just think that the do not sing list is like not real, or at least is just shifting. It's like I would rather you sing something that is completely overdone and be amazing at it than have that extra layer of anxiety and pressure thinking, oh, I'm singing something that they're just going to absolutely hate. Like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's just musical theater. It should be fun. It should be, it's like, don't put so much weight in that, and do something that shows who you are and that you are comfortable doing.
Do you have, and I know that this is not a prescription or a scientific formula per se for every auditionee, but when you come across a performer and you just know, they have the spark, that they are being their truest self. It is the truest, most honest performance that they're giving. Do you see something in common, like a common denominator in that? What's something that makes you go, yep, I believe her.
Oh
I believe
gosh.
him.
This is an interesting conversation because I have a podcast that I do with my colleague Matthew Teague Miller called Carefully Taught Podcast. This is something we talk about a lot, which is preparing the student from the beginning, from that point of entry for the industry. So as you're populating your classes and accepting people, you are really saying to some degree, you are going to be right for the industry. So with that, we become these gatekeepers to the industry, right? As we're watching the industry itself shift and change and diversify and ask questions about what gender means and what an equitable process means, we have to do that same thing from the beginning. We have to say that really anything is possible and mean it. And so to answer your specific question, the common thing that I see is at least now is I'm looking for the uncommon. I'm looking for the little special spark. There is a lot of competition when it comes to auditioning for programs. And we're looking for that little special thing, and we're looking for, depending on the level, depending on what we're talking about, somebody who is interested in investing in their own careers. They're interested in doing the work that it takes. I'm not expecting to find someone who is like 5 stars, absolute perfection. We're ready for the industry now. I'm looking for like potential, and I'm looking for someone who's interested in other things other than musical theater. I'm interested in finding other collaborators. So when we're talking in an interview process during the audition, I'm not trying to catch them in some sort of situation. I'm just trying to say, like, tell me who you are. Tell me what your other interests are. Tell me just, where you see yourself. Are you interested in doing what it takes? I think so many people are told that they are amazing performers in high school, and then they sort of realize, oh, maybe it's not what I really want to do, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And that can come through. That comes through. I've seen people who are just interested in other things, and I'm not saying they should do those other things, but I want to think of this process as being as holistic as possible. What are you interested in taking 120 credits of classes and dance classes and voice lessons? Like, is this something that you really want to do, or can you also do this and find something else? Maybe the program that I'm working at isn't the right fit, or maybe it is. So let's really talk about let's have a real conversation about what the student is auditioning for and asking for.
Yes, that is so good, because again, we put this pressure on ourselves to have already arrived to college as though we're also already Broadway ready,
Yeah.
and we kind of shut ourselves off to, you know, finding those other avenues. I have a student just the other day who's pursuing a performance degree, but she says she realizes this of herself. I think I'd actually make a really good casting director. Like, you know, she just kind of has that kind of discernment of like knowing what other people are good at. And so I love that you're finding that too in their journey
And I
and
want to
encouraging them in that too.
and I want to be clear because it's not that having that interest will take you away from the performance, but actually I think it emphasizes it. To me, so many young people now identify themselves as they should as activists first, right? Like I'm an activist, and then I also perform, and I also direct, and I also write. So now I'm thinking of, you know, what are those hyphens? Like it
Mm.
is actually a little suspect to me when someone says, I'm just a performer and this is the only thing I want. It just makes me go like, well, what will it be like to collaborate with you? Can we connect with each other about how your day went? Or are you just gonna, you know, spout out to
Yeah.
me a Sutton Foster conversation? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
what's really real? Let's talk about what's really real. What do you really want to do? Because ultimately, we're drawing that line from point A to point B. In the industry, you're going to spend a lot of your time not performing. So, like, what are you also going to do? Do you like reading? Do you like what? I like hearing. Tell me your Spotify list. Mine changes all the time, but tell me what you're listening to. What are your interests? That will also make you a better performer. When somebody who has opinions, oh my gosh, like yes, let's do it. Let's make theater together, you know?
You've just given basically the compass for how you should go about choosing songs. You know, not just the stuff that shows you off, but hand in hand, what do you connect with emotionally and personally, and that is going to come through. So yes, thank you so much for that. Kat says I started crocheting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kimberly's on here too saying hi. Yeah, that's amazing. So all right. So again, just keeping this conversation so real and authentic. When somebody comes into your audition room, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
please, when you audition, please do not do blank.
Yeah, I would say it's not like once again it's this do not like
I know.
I
Yeah,
don't want
yeah.
to put like walls up. But what I have found is that people are so nervous if we're in person with each other, or sometimes I've done some of these over Zoom, they're so nervous that they themselves are putting up these walls and like talking a mile a minute and going so quickly. And so it's not really a do not do, but I will say do breathe, like breathe. Just acknowledge the fact that we are all human beings. We've all had a day. It's once again, it's not that serious, but I understand that energy. You want to be this thing, like, hey, look at me, I'm confident, I am here. It's like I can still see that, and I can see it in the work, and you can enter a room and just say like, hey, how's it going? Like, hi, let's talk. Isn't this weird? Isn't auditioning weird? Right? Like
Yeah.
there is that element that I see. So I guess I'm answering your question in the other way. I have seen a lot of people come in with all those walls and just put the walls down, and let's just be together. And um and I'm going to bring my expertise to this conversation, but that shouldn't be seen in any way as this like power play. Like we are collaborators, we're in a room together. I want you to be amazing, I want you to do your best. um I want you to be successful so that we can be successful together, right? Or in the academic space, in the professional theater space, I want you to be successful so I can hire you, and that you can make my job easier.
Right.
That's the common denominator, is finding it's people that really feel like they're easy to work with, and like, great, I can throw a million scenarios at you and you're going to be successful. You're going to catch them, or we're going to have a conversation about them.
I love that. So one last little thought before we wrap things up. So, these are all wonderful things. And I hope that whoever listens to this finds encouragement and says, and kind of sees your face, your lovely face, as they audition in the room. Here's why. Because that you've worked with the actor, the singer, the future student who's had a really awful performance experience. They're still working through even some performance trauma. I'll call it trauma, where they have had your stereotypical dean of the department just lay something that was just, either completely uncalled for. Maybe it was truthful, but the delivery was just like, ugh. So whether it's in the audition room or whether it's just over a cup of coffee, what would you say to that performer that's getting ready to do this again, right? And they've been working through moving past that negative experience because they don't know you, right? They don't know you from anyone else. And
right.
So your face, even though you care and you're championing, you're cheering them on, they're still going to assume they had that other experience to work off of. What would you say to them?
I think this is a great question, a great conversation for sure. I would say it's first of all important to do some research and to ask questions, to talk to other students. And I'm not saying you're going to be able to prevent future trauma,
Sure.
but that you might get some information or knowledge about a program or about the human being that's in there that might be adding fuel to that fire and potentially avoid it. You might say, oh, whoa, I've had 6 students say, don't come to this program, not good, whatever. And you can get and gain information that way. Mm-hmm. Another thing is you as the auditioner have power. This is a topic that I've been thinking about a lot, and can hold that power and can, as Kat said, take that space. Whether or not the person on the other side of the table casts you or invites you to your program has nothing to do with you, which is so wild to even say. But what I mean by that is you can go in, have a successful audition, be amazing, walk out, go to Starbucks, get an iced grande Americano with a splash of oat milk, and go about your day. Whether or not I, on that side of the table, give you the thumbs up or thumbs down or whatever you're imagining, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I guess if that is somehow comforting, I'm hoping that might be. Your audition that day is just going to be that audition that day. There are, I will say, even in academia, there are steps being taken towards professors, deans, taking workshops from theatrical intimacy education, taking power dynamic conversations, talking to people like Kaya Dunn or Nicole Brewer about anti-racist treatment. And I'm saying all these things, there's a million different things inside of that, but your expectation as an auditionee should be that I am working with somebody who understands that my training and my presence is should be a part of a healthy workspace. And if I was rewinding time and auditioning for programs, I would want that to be the case. I don't want to be somewhere, I wouldn't want to train somewhere and perhaps work for 4 years with somebody, with a staff or faculty that doesn't have that training or that understanding. So, I mean, I'm sort of going around your question once again, but it's like, you don't want to put yourself in a situation in an audition room, let alone 4 years of training with people who are holding your talent and your world in their hands if they're not going to be and approach it in a safe way. And it happens all the time. So this is sort of me being like, here's what happens in some of these training areas. Do your research, talk to people, and expect as an auditioner to be in a healthy space. Don't expect trauma. That might happen. Things might happen, but it's possible for you to hold space, for you to be your best self and get that Americano.
Let's go get it.
I want an Americano, so it's on my mind.
I think I might actually go get one. Kikau, thank you so much. I want to take everything you said, put it in my pocket and just like hand it out to everybody that I come across, because I'm going into this with optimism for future students and future performers in the academic and professional performance world. So thank you so much for giving of your time and expertise and your encouragement. We're all better for it. And good luck on your next adventure.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll have another chat again. I hope. I look forward to it.
Oh,
and I will
absolutely.
also say, this idea of reaching out directly to these program directors, like reach out, email, talk to them, ask the questions. Like it is your education. It is your life. You want to make sure that you are lined up with it. Don't be afraid to reach out. Okay.
Love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
And thanks everybody for joining us.